voice totally cracked. Hey, what's up? Thank you for coming back to another video. Of course, it's gonna be another DIY video just because I had a lot of time on my hands. Better thing to do than to just create things, de-stress, or sometimes stress out even more just because things don't turn out the way that you envisioned. This DIY is very similar to the kitchen island that I made. However, I'm not gonna be putting shelves, and it's gonna have somewhat of a waterfall effect. I haven't even told you guys what I'm making for this DIY. So, for this DIY, I wanted to make it's not really an entryway table, but I needed something to go in our bedroom because we have a very empty room and I don't want to be buying furniture that we don't need, but I think that this specific DIY would actually come in handy. And it's just like a little table, decorate the room to be useful, to put some things on it, to put a candle, just to decorate it, to make it look good. This specific DIY is going to have a waterfall effect. What that means is that the top of the table kind of connects with the legs in a way that is very seamless. So I usually just do the straight, side leg, and then I just attach the top part. But this time I want to try out the whole waterfall effect, which is where you cut it at an angle on both sides and they connect together, creating that very smooth and seamless connection. So let's see how that goes. I used 4 pieces of wood. They were 2 by 6. And if you want to make it smaller, you could potentially use less wood. And if you want to make it bigger, then obviously you're going to use more. Besides the wood, I really only needed the glue and some screws. And with all that said, let's just go ahead and get started. Alrighty friends, I do believe this is probably going to be one of the easiest DIYs that you can do. But just don't do what I did. So these 3 pieces, which are 2 by 6s, are going to be the top. And then these 3 are going to be the side. But can you see that I forgot to get the other side? So I have my top, my one leg, and I need to go back and buy 1 more board so that I can have 2 legs. But before I go do that, I'm just gonna go ahead and get started and actually just glue these together and then glue these together. Before you go ahead and glue the boards together, you definitely want to make sure that all the uglier sides are all facing the same side, just because the ugly side, you potentially want it to be on the inside instead of the outside. Okay, once you have all of them, then you're just pretty much going to add glue to each side of the boards and then clamp it together. And then sometimes I like to wiggle it around just so that the glue spreads out. Make sure that the ends are straight. Whenever you're tightening your clamps, you don't want to tighten them too hard, otherwise you're going to create a bowing effect, which is going to warp the wood. So tighten it enough so that it can be tight but not too much. Guys, and that's pretty much it. I'm just gonna let the glue cure for about 4 to 6 hours, and then I'm gonna do the exact same thing to those boards right there. This is what it looks like now that it's all glued together. Now what I'm going to do is sand everything down. I'm gonna start with a 60 grit and work my way up to 220. Like I said, I'm going to start with the 60 grit and then I'm going to work my way up to the 220. In order to cut this in an angle, you do have to measure out a little bit inwards, so when you cut it, it's at an angle. So I'm just going to measure about an inch or so out. So now what I'm gonna do is just cut along this line, but first I have to adjust my circular saw. Now on here it has a couple of different measurements. I want to cut it at a 45-degree angle, so I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. So as you can see, the blade is now cutting at an angle. So when I place this down, it's going to cut this way, which is exactly what I want it to do. I'm going to be using some clamps so that this doesn't wiggle around. I'm going to show you guys a mistake that I made because this is very amateur of me. Whenever you cut something, you have to adjust the length of the blade, and I forgot to do that. So as you can see here, it didn't go all the way through. So I'm gonna fix that right now. The way to adjust the length is by this little guy right here. Okay, let's try that again. So you can now see I have an angle, and that's essentially what I want on the other side, because when I add the legs, it's gonna look like this. I'm gonna do the exact same thing to the other side. Once I cut the legs and I attach them, they are essentially gonna create something like this, and it connects them together really nicely. As far as the legs go, I'm only going to do it to the top of the legs, and I'm gonna leave the bottom part flat. As you can see here, I've already attached one of the legs, which is this one here. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add the other one. I wanted to add one at a time just so that I could ensure that it would be strong enough, and I believe it is. So as you can see here, this is what I meant by that waterfall effect. Yes, I did not cut these perfectly, which I'm fine with because I can always just go ahead and sand the corner down. Honestly, I think I did a pretty good job, so I like how this connection looks. And it's been glued for a couple hours, actually glued overnight, and it's super strong, so I don't see any problems with wobbling. And like I said, I'm just gonna go ahead and attach the other leg now. Also, if you use a speed square to ensure that the connection is pretty much a 90-degree angle, that's also gonna help you so that your leg isn't crooked. Because I want this to be super strong, I'm gonna go ahead and add some screws, just 2 of them, to make sure that this attaches really well. And then after it dries, I'm just gonna remove the screws. Then I can actually go ahead and fill this out with some of the leftover sawdust and some glue, and it'll just kind of clean that up so it doesn't look like there's a gap. This is what I meant by filling it in with sawdust. You'll pretty much grab what was left over and you'll just kind of shove it in there. Oh my gosh, you guys, look how good this came out. Honestly, I am freaking proud of it. And this is what the edges look like. Pretty good. Here's the other one. Now, you can see here that this comes out a little bit more. But what I can always do is just sand it down. So I have 2 options. I can keep it straight, or I can kind of round it off, which is essentially what I will probably be doing. But like I said, this is what it looks like. And right now, I'm just gonna sand it with the 220 grit and pretty much smooth the whole thing out. And then I will go in and stain it. Okay friends, I wanna show you how I was able to cover this screw. So remember how I had attached it for support? I ended up just leaving it, but I did cover it with wood filler and sanded it down. So now I'm actually just going to go ahead and start staining the whole thing, and I'm going to be using Early American, which is usually the one that I always use, and I'm going to be using a paintbrush this time because I don't have any gloves and I don't want to get my hands stained or dirty. So I'm just going to use the paintbrush. This beautiful table that was very inexpensive, very easy to make, and I had fun doing it. These DIYs are a great way to get started because they're not very technical or very difficult to put together. And so that's why I like doing DIYs like this, because you don't always have to do huge projects or big things. Sometimes just making a small and simple DIY is really all you need. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you are not subscribed, I hope that you do so. It means a lot to me and it helps my channel out. And I hope that you also follow me over on Instagram. But I hope you have a great day. Once again, thank you for watching my video, and I will see you in the next video. So have a good one. See ya. Bye.